It's now time for a transition, so I'm going to invite Chad up to kind of talk through his presentation here. Are there any final questions for vocabulary?
Two real quick things. Last year, I picked up a frame holder.
Yes.
That clips on the side of your boxes. I love that, and I had to think, but I really like what Gail said. His risers are spaced out so he can drop the frames in. But to have some place to put frames as you pull them out of the box, that's amazing. The other thing is, I've kind of heard, but I haven't heard anything formal. Does the club have equipment for rental or for use or?
Rental for extraction, yes.
We don't have hive equipment only because that is so unique to the beekeeper, but we do have extractors, uncapping tanks, uncapping knives. We do have some bee suits. Normally those are just the youth bee suits. We don't normally stock an adult bee suit because we figure that somebody's going to be in the process for a long time. But if you've got youth that you want to have, just do an observation of you doing a hive check. We do loan those out, and so we do have some equipment for that, yes. There's basically a north extractor and a south extractor. We try to locate those in different areas that we support. Gail has, I think, the electric one right now, and then I have the manual one. Soon I'm gonna transition to let Sean keep it at his place for a while. So.
What size frames fit in the club's extractor?
Both.
Normally mediums.
Both. Don't give me that. Both. It works.
Yeah.
Deeps and mediums. See?
Okay.
And that's the electric one. As far as the frame holder, they're super. Until you're running 30, 20, 30, 40 hives, you put it on a box and you're putting boxes all back together. Well, where's my frame holder? It's down there in the bottom of that stack on that first hive that you worked on. Now you can tear it all back apart again and get it out of it. Okay? So basically they work, but I don't want them. Okay? We all forget stuff.
It's another piece of equipment.
But again, that's Gail's opinion, right?
But
Right.
what I'm saying is if you use it, I mean,
Yeah.
and you forget. We all forget our hive tool. How many of you lost, okay? It's the idea that another piece of equipment that is not needed, if you get set up so it's work smarter, not harder.
So do you store
The hive stand,
frames with
I mean, they
frame
fit.
in them? And
It
then
holds
do
them
all
for
at
it.
once?
You know?
Season?
No, when I take honey off a hive, I extract. I don't like to wait because the moisture content changes.
Yeah,
If
changes
you try
big
to
time.
store that in the frames, you're so much better off to extract that within 24, 48 hours. Otherwise, the moisture content in that honey changes if you try to store it in the frame.
You also have the problem of the hive beetles starting to tunnel through and the honey just leaking out.
Yep.
Yes.
Wax moths.
The wax moths will move in easier.
Hive beetles is more detriment.
Yeah. They're nasty. So. Okay, so Chad, if you'd like, I'll just go ahead and click through. You just tell me when to
Okay.
change. So, Chad is our newest presenter, so we're going to make sure that he has a chance to. That you want questions throughout, or you want to wait till the end?
Either way, it
Okay.
doesn't matter to me. Like Robert said, I'm new at this, so I'm usually the guy standing in the back of the room. Pretty shy, quiet guy, so this is new to me. And he asked me to go over going through a hive in a calm and safe, productive manner. So I kind of tell you a little bit about myself. I started out 2015. I went to a talk at the library and listened to Zachary. It's a Hung.
Hung.
Yep.
MSU. Yep.
Listened to him talk, and I was really fascinated. Spent the rest of that year reading books and watching video and getting myself familiar with beekeeping. In 2016, I got my first hive from a cutout, and like most people, most of the books I read talked about natural, organic beekeeping. You don't need to treat for mites, and, just let them build their own stuff, and they'll just be fine. And if that's the way you want to go, hope it works for you. It did not work for me, so I tried it, and so that first cut out, and I thought, these bees have been in this house for years, is what I'm thinking in my head, not knowing that they replenish every year. So I showed up at this house to do this cutout, and the house was going to be torn down, so it didn't matter what type of damage we did. We had to put it back together. And I showed up with a top bar hive because that's the way I wanted to go. And to do a cutout in a top bar hive, you need frames to be able to put that comb into. So you rubber band the comb into the frame. Well, a top bar, you don't have that. So I had to build frames around my top bar, and I did, and they rubber banded it in, and they built it up, and it worked great. I really like that top bar hive, but as I got into it, I realized that eventually I want to do this for a living, and top bar is not a thing for that. It's a challenge to extract the honey. You just got to crush the comb, cut it off. So that's not a good hive for that. If you want to just play around with it, then it's a good hive. If you're doing a top bar, you're definitely going to want to have the right bees in it. You probably wouldn't want to run Italians in there because they brood so heavy, and there's so many bees in that. I ran a Russian queen I got from a Russian queen breeder. That worked out really well. She clustered small in the winter, so I would knock that hive down to 10 bars, and I'd put a follower in it. And it worked out really well. And also, too, on a top bar, you get to see the winter dynamic as far as like moisture. If you look inside the entrance in that side of that top bar hive, you can see the water running down the walls and freezing. So you can kind of see how the moisture is inside those hives. So some of the things we're going to cover is the basics of working a hive. Why are you going into the hive is your main question. Anytime you go to your beehive, you want to know in your mind, what's my purpose for disturbing this hive? The equipment you're going to use, and we'll discuss a little bit on what to do if your hive is upset and possible causes for that. So first thing you want to think about is what time of day are you going into your hive? You don't want to go in the evening. You're going to have more guard bees there, and they're going to be a little bit more testy with you and a lot less forgiving. So always avoid the evening times. You want to go in the middle of the day where it's got nice, good sun. And you want to also think about what you're going to wear. You don't want to wear tight clothes when you're going in there. You want to be suited up. Until you get comfortable with the bees. When I go into my bees, I generally am not wearing any protection, but I have it very close. Because if I get a hive that starts bumping me out on the head as I'm walking up to it, I'm turning right back around to my truck and I'm getting my veil because I'm about to get lit up, and I've got to be careful with that hive. And always, if you can, to expose kids to this. Hey, so we're getting older. We need younger generation to get interested in these hives, and they like it.
Just a reminder, we do have 3 different sizes of youth bee suits for loan. Those are normally checked out on a weekly basis, and so feel free to contact us and check out those bee suits for you.
Yep. And as in this picture here, you can see that this is my top bar hive I was working, and all that comb is naturally built, and it's just pretty cool to watch that whole process. And you also learn to handle a frame really well with a top bar hive because there's no room for forgiveness on that. If you pick that frame up out of that hive and you go like that, you just broke your frame. It fell right off. The bees are mad. So you've got to learn, if you want to look at the other side of that hive or that frame, you do this and you do this. So you got to keep everything perpendicular. Because if like I said, if you do that, like you would normally on a Langstroth hive, it's got the sides to hold it in. That comb, that wax will just break right off, and you just completely destroyed any work that they had done on that. You've got honey all over the place, and you've got crushed bees, and they're not happy with you. So you do that about twice, and you learn real fast. Now the time of day you want to go into, you want it to be nice and sunny out. I like to go in around noon too. I've got plenty of time before 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. It's usually my cutoff time for getting into hives. I don't want to go in past that. I want that heat of that sun. And look at your forecast too. If there's a storm heading in, you want to stay out of your hives. Or if the storm has already passed through, give it a little bit before you start getting into your hives. You want working the hives to be pleasurable for you and the bees. We talked about smoker a little bit. You want to make sure you get a nice, good smoke on that. And like I said, pack that smoker full of fuel. The way I light mine is I use a cardboard and a torch that, then I'll put some more in there, get a good kindling going, and pack that with pine needles and get that going real good, and then I'll just finish that off and pack it really full. If I'm not going to be out there for very long, or if I've got more smoke than I need, I've got a rubber cork I put in the end of my smoker, and that shuts it down, and then I can go, the next time I go out, I just pull that smoker out and I take my torch and I hit the side of that smoker and get that red hot, and I get that going back again. And that seems to work pretty good for me, get a good smoke on it. You want to make sure that the smoke is cool. So test it against your arm or your skin to know how that smoke is. If it seems like it might get hotter, if you don't have a lot of fuel packed in there, throw some green grass in there, and it kind of will act as a filter to cool down that smoke. And you want to avoid any sparks flying out of your smoker and onto the bees, because they're going to get pissy. And as you're walking up to your hive, observe what's going on. Look to see if they're bearding, and kind of giving an indication of how that hive might be feeling. This right here it's a nice hot day. They're kind of hanging out on the front porch. The guys have said if they're just piling out of there, then that beard could very well be a swarm. But more than likely, it's the heat, especially if it's a package bee, or unless you got them really confined into a tight area. They're just kind of hanging out. They're trying to cool down that hive, and the less bodies that are in there, the better for them. Look for pollen. Make sure to see if pollens are coming in and out. It's also not a bad idea to have a chair out there and just kind of sit there and watch, see what's going on with the hive. And also it kind of helped get your mind right. You don't want to go in stressed. You don't want to be carrying the boss griping at you all day into that hive, because they're going to react to that just like any wild animal. They're going to feed off your energy, and they'll know if you're stressed before you know that you're stressed, and they will act accordingly. And so you want to make sure you're calm and relaxed when you go in that hive. You want to try to get to the point where you're not scared or nervous about going into that hive. Because if you're scared and nervous, the bees are going to be scared and nervous, and you're going to really upset their mojo, and they're going to do everything they can do to get you out of there, because they want peace and calm in their hive, and they've got a job to do, and they go about doing it. So know your hives. With this set of hives, these are nukes I got. The guy I get them from, they're in mediums. I personally run a deep single brood chamber, so I've got to get those bees up into that deep box. So I feed them to try to bring them up and to build out the foundation I've got in there. I've thought about trying to put boards on the bottom of my deeps to make up that extra space, or my mediums to make up the extra space into a deep. but I'm pretty worried about it cross combing. That would be not fun. But kind of know your hive, know what you're going into, and you'll kind of get to where you know their temperature. Last year I had a hive that was pretty mean, and so I knew if I went anywhere near that hive, I had to be suited up. And it was the hive was not. I've got to imagine it's got to be what working a Africanized hive was like, because they would cover my veil instantly.
Did you destroy the hive then?
I killed that queen, and
Did you requeen, or did you
I
actually
did.
make that your own?
nope, I requeened that hive. I didn't want that genetics in my hive or in my yard, and that was actually it was on a organic alfalfa field. These things should have been just happier than apple pie, but they were not, and that was the only hive that was like that. So when I moved those hives out so that the farmer could harvest that field, I moved the hives I had in there at night so I can keep all of the forager bees, but that hive I left there. And I went back the next day at noon, and that's when I moved it. So all those foragers and guard bees were out. And I mean, as soon as I lifted that hive up, any guard bee that was in there was on me. I threw it in the back of my truck and I drove away. And so I left all those bees to do what they're going to do. And I took away their hive and put it with the new queen down in my yard. And they were just calm as kittens then, after I got rid of all those foragers and guard bees.
What kind of bees were they?
I have no idea. Michigan mutts. They were mean. That's where they were. And they were from here in Michigan, so I knew that they weren't Africanized. It was the guy I got them from. He raises them and grows his own queen. So I know it wasn't from anything down south, and I don't know why those things were so mean. I chalked it up as genetics because all the other hives were nice. So when you go into your hive, obviously give the front of your hive a good smoke in the front. Kind of give them a chance to let them know that you're going in there. And then what I do, so I use this for my lid, is I'll smoke that and just kind of let it sit for 30 seconds or whatnot. But when I take that lid off, I take it off away from me, so that if any guard bees are sitting there waiting for me, they have got to at least go out and try to find me. But if I open it like this, I'm a prime target. They go right to my face. And you'll watch them do that too. You'll open it up and that one bee will just go right there. And it'll stick on that veil, and you're trying to get it off of there, and you eventually get rid of her. But so you open it up like this, and then that will kind of give the bees some warning. When you're looking in your hive and you've got all the bees sitting there on top staring at you, you don't want bees looking at you. So take your smoker and just kind of give it a puff, and they'll turn around and get busy doing something else. That's you want to keep them busy, not focused on you. And so whenever, like Gail was saying, whenever I go into my hive, I've got it, the frames like that, and I'll take my hive tool and I'll get it in there, and I'll break this side free, and I'll break this side free. Then I'll come here and I'll break that side free and break that side free. So you got it all. You got to where you can kind of move these frames, and with all that propolis, like the last thing you want to do is you want to go snap, 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 snap. You might as well just sit there and beat on your hive, because you're irritating the bees, and they're not going to be tolerant at all of you. So once you get them free, look at your sidewalls and see if there's any burr comb in between there. If there is, leave that frame there and go to your second frame and make a little gap with your hive tool and then pull that frame out. But when you pull it out, make sure that you are pulling it straight out. You don't want to rub the sides, you don't want to rub the edges, and make sure it's clear before you do this. So last thing you want to do is scrape those bees right across that top bar, that frame next to it. You're going to roll those bees. You're going to make them mad. And what if there's a queen? What if the queen's on there? Like with me running the single brood chamber, that queen builds from wall to wall. She uses every part of that brood nest. And they just take all the honey and take it up. So there's a chance that queen could be on that outside wall. Not very often I see her there, but she could be there. And the last thing I want to do is kill my queen. So anyways, yeah, so you pull that ring out straight out, and then you look at it, and then you can kind of do whatever you want to do. Set it off the side. Now you've got a nice gap here where you can work your hive. And with knowing what you want to go in there for, they're saying that you want to check for eggs. You don't have to look for the queen, just look for eggs. You see them standing straight up. It's a day-old egg. You know that queen was there. You don't need to waste your time looking for the queen. You want to know what information that you need to find out, know it, and get out of there. Nutrition-wise, if you see the larva's floating in a pool of jelly, you know that you've got good nutrition coming in. If it looks dry, you're going to want to feed them some pollen to get that nutrition back up again. Unless it's in the fall, then just kind of let them do their thing. But if you're looking even in July when the dearth kicks in, you're probably going to want to give them some pollen, some supplemental feeding to help them out.
We'll put you on the spot. What is dearth?
Oh, it's like when there's nothing coming in. The flowers aren't producing any nectar. There's no pollens coming in, so it's kind of a desert.
So that's another one of those vocabulary terms, right? I don't have that in the presentation, but I want you guys to understand what a dearth means, because you'll hear beekeepers talk about that. There's a dearth coming in, and so that means that the nectar flow is slowing down, the pollen sources are slowing down, and there's really not enough resources for them to bring into the hive. And so that's what he's talking about. You're going to want to feed at that point in time. So,
And just to add to what Robert's saying is, it doesn't mean you're not seeing flowers.
right.
You're seeing
Right.
plenty of floral resources out there, but either the pollen and nectar is washed out because we've had days and days of successive rains, or it's gotten so hot that yes, the plants are flowering, but they're not able to make much pollen or nectar. And so bees are like all the other pollen and nectar feeders. They feed at different times of the day, and whoever's there first gets what little bit there is, and then the rest of the day, that flower's still open, but there's nothing for anybody else to feed on.
So how do you tell there's dirt then? If all you see is flowers, but, I mean, you gotta go to each flower and check it, or?
No, you can kind of watch the bees if they're coming in and out really fast. They've got a nectar source that they're are finding. They're bringing in nectar. The bees will be extended, and they'll come in heavy too. Like they're kind of like,
keep it in the air.
yeah, and so they'll be weighted down. You can kind of see that. But if they're just kind of hanging out, like nothing to do, they're bored, it's a good indication that there might be a dearth going on. And also, you see how the milkiness on there, there'll be hardly any jelly in that. And what'll end up happening is those bees will go right on through and cannibalize those because they.
Can you give them sugar then?
Yep, you can give them sugar, you can give them pollen patties to help feed them. They actually say it's produce more honey to kind of give them that a little bit of sugar syrup to keep them going in the fall, so that they're ready to just explode in fall, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they need resources.
Yep. Yeah. So if you can keep them moving, and when you go in the fall, you're going to want fat bees. You want them fat and sassy. So you want to.
That's where to go in the fall.
Yep.
Honey is not the resources that you want for the bees.
And then, so once you're in that hive, you see eggs, you see larvae, look at your brood pattern to see how your brood pattern looks. This will kind of tell you good indication of how that queen's doing. Versus something like this, you got a shotgun pattern. You've got a serious issue going on with that queen. Could be some type of disease going on, but this hive, it's on its way out. So you're gonna have to do something with this hive if you want to salvage it.
Could be mites,
You know,
could be hive beetles.
That
And-
looks a little bit more like drone brood too.
Yep.
yeah.
Instead of a nice black capped brood, it's bulked up.
Yep. And hive beetles are, a lot of those are a symptom, or you can kind of, if your hive is weak, hive beetles are going to come and take over. You know, they're going to capitalize on that as much as they can. And look for disease. Look at your bees. The bee on the left has got K-wing virus. Bee on the right, they got deformed wing virus. See how they look. So you if you got something like that, you've also got something going on. You probably a super high mite load. So you're going to want to do your mite checks. This right here is an alcohol wash. You can get these really easy mite checks at any bee supply house. Amazon for $20. You know, it's a pretty cheap thing to.
Bring the mic cats.
That's okay.
Right.
It's a good time to mention it though. The club bought the last pallet of mite kits that are available. I think they're $25 a piece. That's the powdered sugar mite check kit that comes in a little box. It's got a jar in there. It's got a box of powdered sugar. And it's got the instructions on how to do a mite check. So those are available for you guys to purchase. When you come to a meeting, a lot of times we'll have extra of those mite kits at the meetings. Just ask us and make sure so we can bring one for you if you want one of those. Again, they're $25 a piece, so, and that's at cost.
Could you go back one picture? Okay, you see the bee on the left there? You see the little fuzz? That helps determine the age of the bees also. Because if you see a black, wore-off thorax, the bee's dying. It's old. They'll wear themselves right off. So that you can tell by looking at the bee, somewhat the age of the bee. If there's no more hair left, it's old. It's gonna go. Okay? That's something you want to look at.
You're talking like 30 days old at this point, right?
But they'll wear themselves right off, don't they, Chad? I mean,
Yeah.
you won't see anymore because they've gone in and out so much that they wear their hair right off, and because they're old.
Bald bees are not good bees.
Nope.
But they're old, right? And so if you see a lot of field bees that are actually in that state, you don't see a lot of young bees, a lot of young bees that come back up with the population of the hive, then you're gonna have to do something, right?
Do I say, look at your bees, watch them going in and out. You can see that right on the entrance or the landing board of the hive.
And pollen, you're like Chad said, you're gonna see that pollen coming in and out too. And if that pollen starts to drop off, you're not seeing as much pollen, they're not gonna be building as many young brood bees that you need, so.
Yeah, that's a good indication of what's going on in the environment too. If they're not bringing a lot of pollen in, then you're going into a dearth. You might have to do something about it. So if your hive gets aggressive on you, yeah, Moose with his smiles. So if the hive is aggressive, you need to try to figure out what's going on there, what could be causing it. Is it a mite load problem? Is it a queen issue? It's really hard to say, but by doing your mite checks, you can at least narrow it down. If the hive's aggressive too, and you've got to work it. If you take that hive and move it, if you put an empty box where that hive's sitting, and you move it over here, now you can work that hive. All the bees that are going to fly up are going to go over to the old location. So you can get just to the nurse bees and deal with a lot less aggressive bees. Because the guard bees and the forager bees are over here going, hey, whoa, where's my hive? And they're busy trying to figure out what just happened. And you can go over there and do what you need to do. If you need to find that queen to dispatch her. It's not something that any of us like to do, but sometimes she needs the hive tool and, and get a new queen going in there. A lot of bees in your hives are a sign of a good, healthy hive. In this picture, I wanted to show off this the skunk board, my welcome mat for the skunks. This worked really, really well. I tried lye first to put some lye down on in front of that hive, and the skunks didn't care. I still had mud scratches on the front of my hive. The earth in front of your hive will be bare because that skunk will just sit there and scratch on it at night, and that'll really irritate the bees. So next time you go in there, you're just another skunk that's eating her sisters, and they're mad. So they, just like us, they didn't get any sleep that night, no rest, no peace. You got somebody bothering me all night long. So I built this. This was really cheap, scrap wood. I think I paid $5 for the tack strips at Menards, and I built half a dozen of those, and that worked fantastic.
And if you know a carpet place that does replacing a carpets, they'll give you those tack strips when they tear them out to replace.
Yeah, if anybody's ever dealt with these tack strips, you know that Satan built them because they are evil.
They are evil, they are.
They tear your hands out.
Well, that's about it for me. Anybody have any questions on anything?
So, I guess the one question I have for you is, how many places do you have your honey for sale?
I've got it in 6 places, I think. I've got Capital City Market, LFA in Mason, Williamston, Rio Town, Plain Food Market in Stockbridge, Mater Stop and Go up in the UP, Adornment in St. John's, and I'll soon be in Fresh Time.
Perfect, yeah.
So
How many hives are you running?
I was running 30. This winter was kind of rough on me, but
You said look for pollen coming in and out. What do you look for? Do you just look on the
on the
tracks if there's little clumps of it, or
on the legs of the bee. The,
legs of the bees?
Yep.
Okay.
yeah, I didn't put one on there.
There's a picture when you go into the girls' bathroom, like right, I think that picture has a bee with big pollen pants on.
But on their rear legs, they'll have
Yeah, you'll.
color, either yellow or white
Yep.
or orange.
Yep, you'll see,
What we call pollen pads, or pollen pockets. You'll see them.
Yeah, it's really cool.
The other thing I might add to Chad's deal is, like you said, you know, that they were pawing the ground, the skunks. Sometimes there's speculation of an Africanized hive. That doesn't necessarily mean that's Africanized bees. There could be a problem at night or during the day that is bringing the guard bees at bay. Okay, we had a hive that was close to the fence where there was a cedar tree, and what was happening was the squirrels were jumping out of the tree, landing on top of the hive, and eating their nuts. Well, you go by that tree, or by that hive, and I'm gonna tell you what, they come out after you. We moved it, no more problems. That's why, don't just assume that they're Africanized bees. There could be a nuisance issue. Could be the wind is banging the side of the hive or the stand, or something is creating them to be on guard.
A lot of robbing going on.
Yeah, you don't know. The other thing is, personally, and Leo maybe can concur, I don't always smoke hives. It's not necessary if you learn to go in calm and cool, no stress from work. I show you, bring that frame out of there, finesse, real careful, just be relaxed. Bees will sense just like dogs. If you're afraid of that dog, he's gonna bite you. Bees are worse.
Yeah.
They can sense your, one of our old beekeepers, it was in the club, Kay Barber. She went to do work on a hive one evening at somebody's place, and she went all the way out to, walked out to where the bees were, and she forgot something, she had to have it. She walked back to her truck, a bee got in her veil, and because she was mad at herself, she got stung 3 times. If she wouldn't have been upset, that bee probably wouldn't have stung her. So you omit pheromones that you can really make those bees come alive if
Oh,
you
yeah.
choose. Being allergic, I don't even worry about a bee. If he's in my veil, oh well. But I stay calm. I've learned when I started 15 years ago to just chill. Even though I'm allergic, chill.
Page 35 for that.
You know, the other thing I would like to suggest, and it's cool that you do that, I don't choose to, but I don't want brand new beekeepers to feel that they can run a single brood box the first 1 or 2 years of beekeeping.
Yeah.
Because you need drawn comb for one, okay? But until you learn how to manage a colony, 1 brood chamber is not enough.
It's a lot more management.
Right, and Chad and I have been in it, Leo. We could probably do it, but you need to have more bees to get yourself learning about beekeeping.
Out of all the years that I've done the bee beard, Gail come up and helped me out last year. But the guy that puts them on me couldn't make it. Gail is probably one of the gentlest beekeepers I've ever had to work with.
Really?
I have a passion for bees.
But
You know?
the bees that we had up there were some of the gentlest bees
Correct,
I've
correct.
had in years.
But you have to
I went through
be on
34
cloud 9 and work the bees the best of your ability.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't haphazard. You can't do this.
We went through 34 hives before we found the one we wanted to take up there last.
Really?
And I had to go to another beekeeper's yard to get it.
I mean, my partner,
I didn't have a beehive that I trusted.
yeah, my
to put on
partner,
my
Misha.
place.
Yeah.
First, we took her out to work a couple hives that she had a bee get in her veil, and I'm telling you what, she took off across the hayfield just to tearing stuff off. But guess what? She got stung 3 times. Stop. Stand still. Don't run. Don't swat. Don't. I know it's human fear, but just chill.
I'm gonna share a little
It's hard to
story.
learn, but
Yeah. Last week I had one of the guys that I mentor. He says, I'm gonna be opening up my beehives. If you want to come over, why? I want to wrap it up about 5:30, and then we can have dinner and go to a movie. And so it's all right. And I get over there, and the day before I hurt my back a little bit. I was in pain, and so he was out working the bees. He says, "Why don't you come on over here?" I said, "Well, I'm not sure I should do that right now." I said, "I'm in the pain. They can tell." He said, "You'll be all right." And so I went and sat down about 15 feet from where he was working. I was just sitting there talking to him. Sure enough, in less than 5 minutes, I had 2 stings. Right?
Yep.
Because I was already stressed from the day's work.
Yeah.
And so they could tell. He didn't have any problem whatsoever, right? But they could definitely tell. And it's one of those things that I knew I wasn't going to be able to calm down enough to be able to work the hive with him. And I told him that. I'm too stressed for the day. But yeah.
Little creatures took
they could tell.
advantage of you, didn't they?
But they sense that. Like I said
can.
earlier, they have survived for 3,000 years without human interaction.
Sure.
Why?
I think the only thing I want to add is when I was a brand new beekeeper, the bees kind of learn your scent
Yeah.
and they learn
Yep.
your habit.
Yep.
So I could only work my bees after work, which was when most people wouldn't want to, like 5:30, 6 o'clock at night. There was still a fair amount of them foraging. The other reason to go at noon is half the hive is gone. They're out foraging. But they learned in my klutziness that first year and got really used to me. And you get used to their hum and their tone. A couple times I brought some strangers out. You could tell immediately that they knew because the tone changed. And then there's this bumping behavior that you heard a couple people talk about. That bumping is a warning, 1, 2, 3. If you don't deal with that and get some distance, you're gonna feel it.
The bees will teach you a lot about beekeeping, believe me. Don't they, Chad?
Yes. And if you ever got to move a hive, move it at night and use a red flashlight. You don't want to use a regular flashlight. You want to give that off to your buddy to hold because they're going to light him up and not you.
And then one little thing that we learned that's a little bit peculiar, bees feed on peppermint. But if you take peppermint oil and you mix it with a little bit of witch hazel and put it in a very small spray bottle, you know how everybody was talking about that one pesky bee that'll go to your veil or that keeps latching on your cuff? Don't pre-spray yourself, take it out there, and when that happens and you spray that on your veil or by your gloves, it confuses them. Because where did the peppermint flowers come from? So now they're about 8 to 10 inches off of you. And it gives you time to finish what you're doing or to walk back up. Those last couple bees that want to hang on you and just keep following you up, spray a little bit or have somebody spray your back with a little bit. They'll return back to the hive because it doesn't make sense to them.
When you were talking about moving your bees at night, are you saying you dividing a hive or just relocating?
Just moving them right out of that yard. So
okay.
I had I kind of combined most of my hives into one yard. In that alfalfa field, that I had that in there so that guy could pollinate that not alfalfa but clover. And yeah, so I just picked them up and moved them after I pulled honey off of them. I actually had gone through and split them all, let them raise that queen, or I gave them a queen cell. The queen get mated, and then that's when I moved all my hives into my yard after I pulled my honey. And so they were fairly light at that time, not too bad to pick up. They're all down to a nuke or a single brood chamber. And like I said, that one hive, I actually changed this winter at the Hive Life conference. I bought a different veil because I had a hat style veil on my jacket, and I got so many stings on that right around my head. And
Because it's tight to your skin.
Yep, and they found it, and they went to that hive was.
That's where we went to the fencing veils. And there's
Yep.
a stick in the top of it so they can't get,
Yeah, so if you got a hat style veil, wear a ball cap underneath it, give you some padding, a little extra room. Luckily, I don't swallow up much anymore from getting stung. Because that hive, I had jeans on, and I wear crappy jeans because you get propolis over everything. So if you go to work your hive, don't wear anything you want to keep because you're going to be covered in propolis, wax, honey, everything. And they had found a little hole right here, a small hole, and they headed north, and they got me right in the spots where you didn't want to try to squish that bee.
And they will find holes, just amazing. If you get your zipper right on your veil, definitely they will find those holes and they'll find their way in. So you just gotta make sure that, you use your PPE, but know it wisely.
Yeah, make sure you cuff your legs or pull your socks over because they will crawl up even long pants. And the dark colors aggravate them. So know when you're wearing your jeans, that lower half of you that's dark, that's where they're gonna hit too.
When you moved your bees, did you use the essential oil of lemongrass?
I didn't.
Tracks them?
I did not. Nope. I screened the front off and just picked them up and moved them. When I did that cutout, I used lemongrass. I put it a little bit inside that top bar hive, and those bees were just super calm, even destroying their house, and they didn't really.
I went to a real busy party once that was in someone's yard. Lots of people, lots of locations, and so we were with our friends, and these bees kept coming around us, so we said, oh, let's move over here, so we did. And then the bees kept coming around. So we moved a third time, and then someone came up to me who was a beekeeper and said, I smell lemongrass on you. And the reason the bees keep following you is they like your lemongrass.
Yep. Yep.
Well, it's a lot of it, ladies' perfume, some of the deodorants that people use will attract bees.
Well, lemongrass releases the pheromones that they like.
Yep.
Yep. But sunflower perfume, my ex-wife used to use that sunflower perfume, and they would always go trying to buzz her to get the nectar from the sunflowers because they smelled that perfume. Yeah.
And
It's like my wife's blonde hair.
Yeah.
and-
Question?
I had surgery in October and I got bit when we were checking the hive and I hadn't, they never used to bother me. But I'm wondering, can bees now, when you are on heavy medication, you've had a hip replaced?
Yep, sure can.
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Yep, they sure can. Any chemical imbalance to a standard aroma, they can sense.
Yep.
Even onions and garlic can be problematic. Bananas. My dad actually made a mistake of eating a couple bananas about noon and then went to work at beehives at about 2 o'clock. Not a good idea. Yeah. That sting pheromone, once a bee stings, it gives off a different aroma, and that aroma has a scent that's similar to a banana extract. And so
Yeah,
you really don't want to eat bananas, it'll kind of go work.
Right, and when you're working a hive, if you all of a sudden start smelling bananas, you're about to get lit up. So,
Really?
yeah,
Really.
Oh, yeah.
It gives off the scent of it.
yeah, you can actually smell it, and you got to get the smoke. I'd close up that hive, and I would walk away for a couple minutes, and if you got something you got to finish, then maybe. But
They're gonna go bananas.
yeah,
It's just like anything that has a startle flight type, sense, right? Skunks are the worst, right? Stingrays do the same thing. They give off the ink. All animals do that. You do too. Whenever you get excited, your adrenaline kicks in. Your body has a different aroma. That's how these dogs, these specialist care dogs, can sense that because once your adrenaline starts to kick in, they can smell it. So the early warning sign.
Oh, yeah, that's
So,
what
yep. Everybody does that. Every insect does that.
And then I guess one of the things I might add is just, when it comes to a smoker, I guess my thought is, and you can think about it if you choose, one of the instincts of anything, humans, animals, insects, it doesn't matter. When you have a fire or smoke, what is the first avenue?
Get away.
Get away,
Yeah.
okay? That's true, but also puts them in defense mode, okay? I feel it does the same thing to bees a lot. If you smoke a hive too much, they're not gonna like it, and they're gonna get very defensive. So that calmness sometimes plays a effect that if you don't have to smoke them bees, don't.
And there's times when I've used liquid smoke in just a spray bottle rather than the actual physical smoke. Just as a different scent in
It
the
just,
air.
sometimes that fear and flight is what we want to avoid,
yeah, you want just enough. If you're using smoke,
Yeah.
just enough to turn them around.
Just don't think you gotta smoke that hive every time you take the cover off.
Yeah, and what you're trying to do is you're trying to get just enough smoke that you change that banana scent to peppermint or whatever it is.
Right.
You're getting just enough of that aroma change in the air that it's not as permeated in the area.
Yeah,
Sometimes what you use for smoke
Yeah.
has an effect too.
yeah, yep. I used to use cow manure.
Yeah.
That worked great because it just smolders, and it doesn't stink like you expect it would. So,
Same thing as the alfalfa pellets.
yeah.
So dry cow manure?
Mm-hmm.
Super dry.
Yep, super dry. Just break it off, just put it in there.
Just like bring all the
That's right.
time when you go out.
I don't store equipment in
Huh?
my bee yard. I normally bring it back
Yep,
to that.
just
to that
recycled-
storage
recycled hay.
yard
So why did you
Or
stop
on a
using
pallet
it?
out by the.
Tired of going out and rummaging through my buddy's field for cow manure and getting that wet one and going, ugh.
You don't store any equipment actually in the bee yard, do you?
No, I take all of my stuff out. I would say occasionally, like this fall, the bees were eating through quite a few honey supers towards the end. and I didn't have enough time or room on my little cart to move them. So I stacked them and had the bottom sealed. You always take a lot of extra equipment out to the field because you never know what you're going to find or do. And then I would pick them up like a few days later when it was more convenient to bring them in to work on them. I like to clean my stuff up over the winter, see what needs to be repaired, maybe touch up a paint job or something like that.
Yeah.
Good.
What's the value of buying a hive versus a Native American hive, or vice versa?
Good answer.
Yeah.
The chances of getting a native hive right now is pretty slim. The populations of native hives in the area has diminished so drastically. 9 times out of 10, you're actually going to be getting a swarm that has survived in nature a couple years. You're not going to find too many native hives unless you got a beekeeper that's had a successful overwintering rate for a long period of time. You can get a hive that's been from Michigan. Like Gale, a lot of Gale stuff is overwintered several years. There's a couple in the area that have quite a few hives that overwintered well. Those are good sources for nukes. But if you're trying to catch a swarm, it's probably going to be for somebody else's hive.
How would you tell if it's native? Because my thoughts is a lot of people know the last name Klein, and he's to me probably the biggest in Michigan, 2,500 at a time. I don't know anybody that has more than that. So he doesn't collect his swarms.
Right.
He personally tells me all that stuff. So they're always out. Mine are doing the same thing if I lose one. So all you got is European or whatever, Russian, whoever you guys have.
You're really not going to be able to tell, right?
Yeah.
That's the hard part about the beekeeping side of things. There's no characteristic that you're going to say, hey, this is an overwintered Michigan colony for 5 years or 10 years or whatever it is. If you got the documentation on a hive, I got one swarm that I caught 9 years ago, and I've been able to maintain that hive, and we replaced her queen from her own daughters and stuff like that for 9 years, right? And so I know that hive is actually a very good overwintered Michigan. We did a grafting from that last year, but that's one out of how many that I've kept, right? I don't have any other hives that have that longevity.
Yeah.
Gail probably does.
I know Mike Risk will do a whole bunch of nukes, and then in the spring, you're not buying packages from him, you're buying overwintered Michigan queens and Michigan nukes, but you're paying a good price for that. And he does it on a rotating list. So when he runs out, and you may not have bees.
He also does supplement from queens. He has actually bought the Purdue Eagle-Biter strain and actually incorporated those into his bee yard too. So, but he does have a really good overwintered stock for those nukes. So, Gail, quick question while you're navigating here. Is there any way to actually tell if it's a Michigan native honeybee versus some of the packaged bee stuff